Hi everyone, welcome to Professional Editing for Aspiring Filmmakers. Today we'll be exploring some foundational techniques for Hollywood post-production in Premiere Pro. I'm Christine Steele. I'm a filmmaker based in Los Angeles. I started out my career as an assistant editor working on documentaries, feature animation at Pixar, and then I moved to Showtime for some narrative features. I moved on to editing and post-production supervision, and then I worked, on so many different projects. I worked on a 70mm IMAX feature. I worked editing and supervising a children's animated television series and several documentary series for broadcast. Lately, I've been producing and directing my own documentary features and series. And I can say I've faced some technical challenges during my career and made some mistakes along the way, but that has led me to have the experience I've come here to share with you today. I've now got a pretty solid handle on best practices in Premiere Pro, and I'd like to show you a few tips and tricks to hopefully make your experience in Premiere more successful, particularly when you're working collaboratively on long-form features, episodic series, or possibly more technically complex projects. Okay, let's get started. I am working in Premiere Pro version 24.2.1, and you can see that I'm here in the home screen area just after launching Premiere. And this is where I can create a project by giving it a name. I'll go ahead and call this one Pro Edit Demo 1. I'll choose a project location for saving the project. I'll put it here in this Professional Edit Training Live folder, and I've got a folder created to save projects for this particular session. I'll choose that. And I want to point out that Premiere now has this really great new pull-down menu up at the top that gives you the option of selecting a project template right away. So let's go take a look. We can choose a broadcast template project, social media template project, or a standard template project. And, I'll probably end up adding a lot of my own, but right now I think I'll select the broadcast template project since that's closest to meeting my needs at this point. I'm not really sure yet. I haven't brought in the footage to know what type of project I want to set up, and I always customize everything anyway, so I'll select Broadcast Template Project. Over here under Import Settings, let's go through these. I have the option of organizing media, and when I do that, I can have Premiere automatically create bins for me, and when I import the media, I could, for example, choose to call it interviews. And then if I'd like to, I could copy media. So if I wanted to do that, I want to select the button to turn that feature on. And I always copy with the MD5 verification turned on. Takes a little bit longer, but it's worth it because it's providing you with a checksum and making sure that the data is intact and everything's there and correctly copied. So I would select that. And you also need to set a destination for the copied files. Choose a location if I haven't preset one. Those copied clips will be transferred to where you tell them to go. I am actually not going to copy clips at this point, so I'll turn that off. And I could choose to create a new sequence, but just like the project, I don't really know what my settings are going to be yet because I haven't gotten that far along. I'd rather ingest the footage, import it into the project, and actually examine it and take a look at what the file codecs look like, the frame rate, just check everything out before I create a sequence. So I won't select that. But if you were to, you could name that first sequence here. And I'll turn that off. So this is the main reason I'm going to this import settings area. I am really liking the new feature to have the option of automatically having the transcript generated. I love this new feature, so I'm going to turn that on. and select English since the footage I'm bringing in is in English, although you could check enable language auto detection and it will detect if it's in another language. So I'm going to bring in some documentary footage. When I'm working with documentary footage, actually really like to separate the speakers so that if the director's asking questions on camera, that's separated out. So I will select yes, separate the speaker. Now for transcription preferences, you could auto-transcribe only clips in the sequence, or you could auto-transcribe all the imported clips. I personally like transcribing all the clips. Doesn't matter whether I'm working on scenes from a narrative feature or a documentary, I really like to have transcripts for everything I'm working with. But at any point in time, you can turn this off here or in the project. So let me go ahead and check this over. I don't really need any of this except automatic transcription because this home screen window is designed for people to get started really quick and easy. It gives you access to your computer's desktop, to your movies folder, and to any of the media drives I have currently loaded on my desktop. And I could really easily just start picking footage and viewing it and importing it. But when I'm working on long format projects, with collaborative workflows, large teams, and the project's going to go on for months, if not years, the last thing that feels like is quick or easy. Because at the beginning of the project, I really want to assess all my footage, all the different types of footage I might be bringing in. I want to talk with my team about what our distribution goals are. We want to set ourselves up for success. So I don't import anything from here, but I will go ahead and turn on automatic transcription and create the project. And when we get over to the project, I'll introduce you to what we do use to set up properly so that we have really solid workflow practices in place. I import everything using the media browser panel. On the home screen with the broadcast template project selected, I'll press create to start a new project. And boom, I've got my broadcast template project here. You can see it opened it up for me. So they give me a bunch of empty footage folders here, a bin called footage, audio, graphics, music, photos, and sequences. I customize everything anyway, but I'll go ahead and leave full screen mode by pressing that tilde key. And the first thing we will do is go over to the media browser panel. Docked in here with the project, next to Pro Edit Demo 1, I've got the media browser. And I will full screen that by putting my mouse cursor over it and pressing the tilde key on my keyboard. And I want to introduce you to the media browser panel, just get you oriented at first. It consists of a line in between the screen that allows you to divide this into two parts. So on the left side, you'll see the different drives and places that we'll be accessing our media from. And then on the right, whatever we're looking at on the left spills its contents over into the right side. This is where we'll actually begin importing our footage. The media browser is fantastic for so many reasons. I'm going to share with you some of my favorite reasons as we get familiar with bringing footage in through the media browser. I can't stress enough how important it is that you build the habit of importing everything into Premiere utilizing this panel. And I'll explain all the reasons why, but I'm going to begin by selecting the ingest checkbox and showing you that you can ingest, not only import your files into a project, but ingest footage from the camera card or from any drive right here in the media browser panel. There's a settings wrench, the open ingest settings spanner. If you click it, the project settings are going to open up for this project. And you can click through here. There's general settings related to the video time code, audio sample rate, safety guides, etc. But we can always come back and change our project settings inside the project at any time. What I'm really interested in this area is the scratch disk settings to make sure I know where my footage and my projects and my motion graphic templates media and my previews, everything are being saved. And this is something on a large project, especially if we're sharing footage on a shared server, this is something that becomes very important to have a discussion with your team about, because I like to save my projects locally, many of us do, but most of our footage is saved in shared server environments. I'm going to go ahead and, for the purposes of teaching, just leave these set to the defaults, and this will be created, for example, the audio previews will be created in a folder right next to the project itself. Under ingest settings, this is the reason I opened this, we have a couple of different options here. We have the option to copy, transcode, create proxies, or copy and create proxies of our footage. It is critical that you begin the process of thinking through how you want to approach the footage that you're working with. And the first thing that I do to figure that out, I don't know yet what I want to do. I do tests. I start testing. I create proxies in different formats and in different frame sizes, and I begin editing with them and testing to see what works and what's broken. Of course, I base a lot of those decisions on what's worked for me in the past. As I mentioned before, what the deliverables, the specifications for the final project are. Where's this going? Is it going to broadcast television? Is it going out as a DCP for a film festival? What's the destination? And having some discussions with my team about that, which I'll talk more about as we keep moving along. I think what I'd like to do, since the footage I'm about to bring in is 8K, it's very high resolution, large file sizes, I think what I'd like to do is create some proxies. And we'll come back to talking about transcoding a little bit later. So because I'm bringing in 8K footage, the frame size is great at quarter. I don't want to go any larger than that, or it wouldn't save me much space or time. The whole point of making a proxy is to make a lightweight, small file size that plays smoothly. It can easily be edited on a laptop. That's my goal anyway, so that if I'm on the move or still on production on location and I want to be able to work with the footage, or I just, I don't have the kind of system that can handle an edit in 8K, I want to make sure these are super lightweight. So I'll select quarter resolution. And the nice thing about Premiere Pro's presets are that they preserve that aspect ratio of the original footage. And as you noticed, you're working in either half or quarter, or you certainly could work with a custom size, but I don't recommend beginning that way. Stick with quarter or half for the first time you're working with this. And as far as presets go, this is kind of tricky here, and we're going to do a deep dive, maybe not too deep, but enough that you get a sense for how I like to work. The preset here that is automatically chosen is the ProRes QuickTime Proxy. Now, I love working with ProRes. I am working in Hollywood. We're almost always on Macs. And working with Apple, ProRes is just such a great codec. It is fast, it's smooth. You can cut your footage without problems. So often I will choose ProRes, but the file sizes are really large. So this isn't necessarily the type of footage I would want to work with on the go on my laptop. It certainly isn't the type of footage I would want to upload to the cloud, say, to pass to an editor of mine who's in New York. So I think for this particular demonstration, I'll show you what I would do for making it extra light, meaning much smaller in file size. I would go ahead and choose the H.264 MP4 proxy. Now, the proxy destination right now says same as project. I'm going to navigate by choosing a location so that I know where these proxies are going. I'll go ahead and put them into the LIGO, that's the name of the project. that project folder and I'll say choose. And I will choose to add a proxy watermark. I actually find it's really helpful, particularly when you're beginning your tests. These are test ingests. It really helps me to instantly see which is the proxy and which is the full res. Now at 8K, you pretty much can tell, but by adding this watermark, it just makes it so easy for me to have discussions with my team about what direction we want to go and how this workflow is going to turn out. The last thing I want to encourage you in this project settings dialog box to pay attention to is the summary. I see so many people just skip right by the summaries. The summaries are so important. You will learn so much by reading the summary panels. I know maybe if you're having trouble sleeping, you can spend some time reading summary panels in Premiere Pro. But this is something that I always review. Right now it's telling me I'm creating proxies, where they're going, and what preset I used. If I dig down a little bit deeper, I see that there is an overlay proxy watermark and that the frame size is 1/4 of the width and height of the source dimensions. And right now it's saying the video is based on source and the bit rate is, it's 1 pass. Normally, if I was going to make these proxies for editing, we know what we're doing. I know what codec I want to use, whether I'm going to work in ProRes or if we're cutting on PCs, I might be working proxies that are in DNX. Or in this case, I'm making really lightweight proxies in H.264. If I knew exactly what I wanted to do, if this wasn't a test, I would go ahead and increase this to 2 pass so that the proxies look better. It just takes a lot longer, so I'm going to skip that. Bit rates look good. You need to stay over 10, but this is just a talking head. Bit rates are something I increase if I have a lot of footage coming in that has a lot of change, like a lot of motion. Say the camera's panning across a large crowd at a stadium, but these are talking heads, so this is fine. And I've found that these presets in Premiere Pro, they work really well. So I've had really good results with using these preset ingest settings from Premiere. Everything's worked out great. I'm noticing something here that might be a problem. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm going to use this as a teaching moment. I see that the audio, which should be based on the footage I select, I think it will read the footage I select and create the proxy's audio to match. It's usually called based on the source being the 8K files I'm bringing in. We will come and revisit this later inside the project after I have ingested and imported the footage, because it's very important that our proxy's audio channels match our original source footage so that we don't have problems later down the line. Okay, so I'll click OK. And I've set now the ingest settings. So let's go take a look at the footage I'm bringing in. So my very favorite thing about the media browser panel is the favorites section. Look, even though it's so much faster to just open a Finder or an Explorer window and grab your footage and drop it into Premiere's project panel, it's never going to provide you with all of the metadata that you will need to have a successful experience working on a complex project. So that is the primary reason I'm using this panel. But the other reason is that in making a habit to use this panel, I can make it be a much smoother and faster process for me by saving favorite locations. So if every day when I'm editing, I am bringing in sound effects and music later down the line, I could save a quick link to my sound effects folder or the drive that holds my music cues. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and show you why I want to save a favorite by drilling down into these folders here. You'll see, like if I come here into the production and I'm looking here for media, well, in this case, my media is local on this drive right here. And I can dive down. Here it is. LIGO is the project. These are the 8K files. I can right click and I can add that to the favorites area. And if I'm often coming into the media folder, I can add that to the favorites column. This may seem really self-explanatory, but I can't tell you how much time I've wasted doing this. Clicking on, whatever drive I need to go into, and in this case, I'm using as an example my Macintosh hard drive, into my user area, into my documents, into my client folder, and then into, in this case, my training folder. And oh my gosh, trying to find the footage that I need. Okay, so I think it's in this one. So there's my Steel training assets, and I can add that to the favorites column. And I could do the same thing with the whole 2024 training area. In this particular case, I'm just showing you an example of how I like to work, which is not twirling all of these arrows to get into drives, but rather to set up my favorites so that I have quick access to my footage and to graphics and music, etc. So utilize that favorites area and set it up so that this process of bringing in your footage from the media browser feels easier and faster. All right, so one of the most important tips I could give you and reasons to be using this particular panel is that when I go take a look at the footage itself, this is 8K footage. Footage like this that comes from a RED camera, this was shot on RED, or from an ARRI Alexa, those are just two examples. Those are spanned file clips. So if I was to step over to the Finder for just a minute and show you this footage on the drive, I could take a look and show you that when I step in here, this footage is actually many, many, many pieces. So take a look at this. I do have one proxy file I've already created, but the actual file is spanned across all these different pieces of footage. While we're here, I want to point something out. I made a point of asking the camera, the cinematographer, Beth, to give me the LUT that she was using to set up the look for the footage for this interview while she was filming. So I threw that LUT, this is called a cube file, in with the footage. So I'm just going to show you that now because it comes into play a little bit later. Anyway, so these are spanned files. I'm coming back to the media browser panel, and when I step into that folder, these will be represented as stitched together, smoothly playing clips. So I'm going to switch to the icon view from the text view to the icon view so you can see the footage. And it takes a second because this is 8K, but in just a moment I'm able to hover scrub through the footage, which is fantastic. Obviously it's log, you'll see that it's kind of flat looking, that's intentional. And I've got, two parts. Okay, so they must have had to stop during the course of this interview, or they did two takes. I see it's camera A 201 and camera A 202. So this is one stitched clip and it will play back seamlessly. What's really great about this is I can double click this clip right now and it will load up in the source monitor. Remember how I showed you that little cube file that was in with the footage? It automatically reads that metadata. Why? Because I imported it through the media browser panel. And this is just amazing. So even if it takes you a little longer and you have to break that habit, like I still have it, of opening a folder and dragging a clip right into the timeline, you won't have access to all this incredible data. And later on, when it comes time to share your edit with a visual effects editor or a sound designer, a dialogue editor, a sound mixer, any of those people are going to need all of the metadata intact that came from the original camera card itself. And take a look at this, because Media Browser was employed to bring in this clip, it immediately applies all that color data, and I can see what was set up in the shot by the cinematographer. Now that doesn't mean I won't change it later on, but this is great. I don't have to actually go apply anything for the director to take a look at this with me and have to wrap their head around what's it going to look like when it's not flat in log footage. Okay, so this is not actually in the project. If I click back over on the project, there's nothing in here. I just opened it. I'm just viewing it and playing it. I haven't actually imported it. So I'm going to step back over to the media browser panel, press the tilde key to get full screen. And this is really important. The best tip I can give you is it's not just about using the media browser to import your files. It's about using the media browser correctly so that you preserve all of the footage metadata. And that means do not be tempted to right-click on this folder and import it. Because right now, although Adobe may change this later, I don't know. If I import this as a folder, it's no different than just grabbing that folder and drag dropping it into my project at this time. We'll see if that changes. But for the clips, every single one of them, to have that important metadata added and brought into the project, I need to select all on the right side. So this section, and whether I'm looking at this in text mode or icon view, it doesn't matter. I can always select all, Command A on a Mac or Control A on your PC, and I can bring all the clips in at one time. I'll select the project panel one more time, and I could select the footage folder that I want it to go into. In fact, inside the footage folder, I could right-click, create a new bin, and call this Ariana interview, right? And then I can select that. Stepping back to the media browser panel, when I select all on this side, right, I then can right click and choose import and bring all those clips in at once. But you do need to bring them in as individual clips from the right side of the media browser. So now that these two clips are here, you can see all the metadata is spilled out, and if you ever need to get into these metadata panels to change anything, you can right click on any of the names of the metadata columns and click metadata display. This is also something I think Adobe is working on right now too, is making this more user-friendly in terms of accessing the metadata columns and how we're able to adjust them. But these are the ones that are showing the check marks, and the ones that are not showing, you can turn on. A really important one for me to know is the file path. I like to see exactly where this clip lives. And the other thing is that if we're going to use a proxy workflow while we're working, we want to see the proxy file path. And there is, a couple other things in here. We might like to see the proxy file name, the file name, whatever you like. I like comments and log notes. I don't tend to change the names on my clips. I often leave them the name that they were coming in off the camera card, as you see here, the scene, the shot and take number that was either added by the DIT on location or appended by the camera card itself. We'll talk a little later about changing the names a little bit more. So I just wanted you to see that this all-important metadata is available here, right? And I can scroll through it and kind of take a look at what's going on. I want to bring the attention back to that initial home screen panel where I checked the box that said transcribe, auto transcription, and take a look. They're not done yet because I just imported them. They're 8K clips. I'm still pretty impressed that oh, look at that, completed. One's already, I was just beginning to say I'm so impressed Premiere Pro is so quick at this. So take a look. One of them has already had its transcription process completed and one is still in progress. I'm gonna drag this metadata column forward and so I can take a look and see when that's done. So I'll select Ariana interview again, head back to the media browser and go get her B camera. So here's her B camera footage. And again, I'm not going to right click on that folder. I'm going to select the folder by clicking it, highlighting it, see the contents spill over to the right side of the frame. And great, there's two clips, as there should be, of the B camera. So I'll select all, right click and import, and there they are. There's her B camera. Those are also in the process of being auto transcribed. So while this footage is still ingesting, let's review a little bit about the media browser, just to kind of give you all the details about why you should spend some time deep diving into it and build that habit of always ingesting and importing your footage using that panel. The main reason post-production professionals use the media browser panel is that files that include and need metadata from the camera, they rely on the media browser import for metadata preservation. Spanned files like the RE Alexa and R3D Red files rely on the media browser to be correctly stitched together for great playback. Project and asset sharing also relies on the media browser import of the data, and that results in better performance when you're working with a team. And saving favorite locations, that's my favorite. For accessing your footage, it really saves a lot of time and encourages you to continue using the media browser. It makes that faster and easier. And dynamic linking, when we're bringing in projects from After Effects, Audition, Media Encoder, Photoshop, those all perform better when you bring them in via the media browser. Most importantly, AAFs and EDLs for exporting audio information and sharing your edits with other collaborators like colorists or visual effects editors, audio mixers, sound designers. All of those transfers of data will yield better results when we import the footage from the get-go using media browser.